All right,
Okay.
let's get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Paul Isaacs.
And I'm Amanda Luthi.
You may recognize Amanda from yesterday. She was one of the devs on stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Did anybody see a Sasquatch at the party last night? I was on the look. No.
Because if my eyes look a little bit deep set, it's because the magic potion that they gave me to turn me into Sasquatch for a day is not completely worn off. So when we're not on stage, either sounding intelligent or looking savage, back home, we work together on a team that is working on a new feature that we're going to show you today. It's a prototype of a new feature for Tableau, animated transitions. So animation is going to bring Tableau to life in a way that we hope is going to enhance your ability to get into the flow of analysis, and that it will make Tableau more fun and engaging and productive. Today's talk has three main sections. First, you're going to hear about why we're doing animation. Then we're going to talk a bit about how we're doing animation. And lastly, we're going to talk about how we want to enable you to take advantage of the new feature. Finally, after you meet the team, we're going to give you a chance to ask us some questions.
Just one thing before we begin. There are a lot of moving parts up here that are a little weird for us. It's odd. In my office, I have only two screens, and I don't have to switch between them. But if we ever miss anything, it is your duty to let us know that you're looking at slides when you think you want to be looking at something that's animating. Okay, just let us know. We take that feedback, and we'll switch the thing. But it's going to happen. So.
Yeah. Or if you're still looking at a demo and we think we're showing you a slide, just, scream real loud.
Not scream, just, Okay, so we live in the golden age of animation. It's fun and it's sexy, but that's not enough. Tableau has a refined aesthetic and has applied academic rigor at all stages of development. So why add animation to Tableau? A company that avoids superfluous cuteness and gimmickry. A company that, until yesterday, would never show you something ridiculous on stage, like a Sasquatch, or in this case, a video of a cute dog. Well, we believe that animation helps solve real problems. This dog is going to play the shell game in order to earn a treat. Try and follow along. How'd you do? Who got it? Awesome, good. A fair amount of you. Some of you didn't, but that's okay. We still love you.
No, go.
Oh wait, no?
So one thing to notice when watching that is, it's not that hard to follow the action, but it's a little hard. Yeah, actually, sorry. It's not that hard to follow the action, but it's a little hard. And when you kind of get engaged at that level, but you're not discouraged, we call that flow. And so the kind of flow that you might have felt in watching the shell game is also something that we actively strive to give you at Tableau. It's part of your user experience. When you're working with Tableau and you achieve flow in your work, you feel a lot of these good things that are highlighted in this quote here. And that makes you feel like your time is better spent. Okay, so not all of you got it. We're going to give you another chance to play this game. See if you can follow the treat start to finish. How's that flow going? So needless to say, it's much harder when you can't see the transitions between each swap of the cups. Well, we believe that there are a lot of situations in Tableau like this one, and that animation is a help. We're betting that you'll be able to relate to at least some of the examples that we are about to show you.
Let's start with something a lot like you just saw. We'll take a look at a scatter plot moving forward and backward through time via the page shelf. In Tableau today, it's hard to follow the marks because just like in the second dog video, the transitions are missing. Okay, so here we go. Pick a mark, follow along. So it's not so easy, but let's check it out with animation. Again, pick a mark and follow.
I like this audience.
So thanks for coming. Have a great time. So just like the first dog video, this helps you stay in the flow. The marks no longer jump. They smoothly change locations. Your experience is more like that video, right? You keep your train of thought as you work and your flow increases.
Remembering to change? Yes. All right. Okay. Here's another one, this time with bars. Did you ever lose track of which bar you were filtering in or out of a bar chart? Well, it's even worse if you've got 2 bars, or more than 2 or 3, more than one at a time. And sometimes you undo and you redo to figure out which one it was, or you like check out the labels to find the guy. So here we have a case of filtering out a bar in and out. Do you know which one it is?
Oh, see, you guys are amazing.
Thank you. So here we have a case without animation. This is what you're used to. Is it immediately apparent which bar is coming or going? No. Delaware, correct. All right.
Yeah, the front row folks who can read.
Well, so those of you who got it, well, of course, yeah, never mind. Okay.
Go on.
Going on, here's what happens when you do the same thing with an animated transition. So you've got a couple of things helping here. So a key thing to think about here is that when it's this obvious what you're filtering in and out, which mark it is, you're no longer spending all the time figuring out which one was it. Rather, now you're thinking one level beyond that about how that mark relates to the others. You're thinking about the problems more related to your analysis and less about hunt and peck and I can't find it.
Okay, but filters don't always add and remove bars. Polly likes to say that that's the official background of the animation team.
Oh, yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, you'll see.
So filters don't always add or remove a bar. We have this thing called slicing filters. And they're a little weird, so I'm going to explain them again for those of you who aren't comfortable with them. Slicing filters change the length of a bar. And sometimes they slice out entire bars. Non-slicing filters, which is kind of the one you think about when you think about filters usually, they only ever add and remove marks. So what Polly showed you was a non-slicing filter. So I'm going to show you slicing filters now. Thank you. Okay, so our year is a slicing filter. I'm telling you now, so you're prepared, the length of the bars is going to change.
As well as the color.
In some cases.
The length and the color are both coded to a value that is summed over a series of years. So when you remove a year, you're removing part of the value, and therefore you change the length, you change the color.
Okay, so comparing that to a non-slicing filter, which just removes the bars, like we saw earlier. Okay, now let's see that with animation. Here is the slicing filter. Again, the length of your bars are changing. And here's the non-slicing filter. Again, you can see how things change. And with the color on this, as I filter out copiers, you'll notice the colors animate as well. So for example, this orange down here on tables got a little bit darker. Animation adds 2 things here. You can more easily track the marks in both situations. And second, you can understand whether it's slicing or non-slicing and exactly how that filter works by what happens in the animation.
All right, here's one directly from my own life. My very first experience with a Tableau dashboard when I was preparing for my job interview with Tableau. I had no experience with data visualization at the time. I had an animation background. So they said, hey, go here, check out this dashboard, and like see what you think. So that's what I did. I followed a link. There was some text that was encouraging me to click something to make a change. And I clicked it, and all of a sudden I was like, I feel really stupid and a little frightened, and I'm never going to get this job because I don't know what I did. I didn't know if I was looking at the same viz as I had been looking at before. Was I on the same page? What was this about? I did some undos and redos, and after a while I did figure out what was happening. But as you get better at working with this stuff, it's less of a problem. But you folks, you're making vizzes for people who have that same lack of experience that I had. And your audience is going to be just as lost as me sometimes. Sometimes you have to really explain what's going on. Well, if you animate something like this, the first thing that's immediate is, I did this, I made things move, I'm looking at the same thing, things are changing because I did something. You can start to relate, like, okay, these light blue things are leaving, they're coming back. You're much further ahead in the game at understanding what's going on. Something like this is still complicated enough that you have to spend some time, but you don't go through that immediate feeling of being utterly lost.
So like filtering, sorting has different variations that can be difficult. You can sort alphabetically, by value, or manually. Without animation, it's really tough to keep track of what sort you're doing. And as long as you're driving, it's a little easier. But if you switch to manual, you might not even know what you're looking at. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to sort. Here we go. I'm going to start by sorting this alphabetically. So we all know that we're sorting alphabetically because I just told you that. And if I sort it by field, again, like things kind of jump around a little bit. Go to manual, and why is that at the bottom? You might not know. But if we move to animation, and we do the same thing again, you can see how they're sorting alphabetically. Or you could if that wasn't blocking it. So Vermont, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, Ohio, for those of you in the cheap seats. And now we've got Connecticut, Delaware, DC, and Maine at the top. So you can see how they're sorting alphabetically. If we change to field, again, you're seeing how they're sorting by profit in this case, descending and descending. And again, manually, you see how and why that moved.
But as you saw yesterday in Devs on Stage, sorting is not restricted to one dimension. You can have multiple dimensions you can have multiple dimensions in one viz, and each one sorts in a different way. In this case, we have 3 dimensions. There's regions with states within regions and cities within states. Each bar is a city, and they're grouped within their states. So, and there are 3 states. Well, there are several states within each region. So each region is a different color here. You can see the leftmost region has 3 states, and each of those states has a number of city bars. And sorting each of these has a kind of a different behavior. I'm going to do the ascending, descending. I'm just going to do fields ascending, descending. So here's city. So in this case, within each state, there's a reversal of the bar directions. If instead you sort by state, then the cities are going to change in groups within their regions. And if you sort by regions, each big group of color is going to change order of sorting. And again, especially if you're driving, you kind of know what to expect, but you do have to pay really careful attention to what you're doing. And it can be hard. It can be very confusing for someone else watching what you're doing unless they explain it as slowly as I just did to you. As opposed to those three types of sorting again. So here's the city dimension. Here's the state. And here comes region. So you don't have to think so hard about what's going on. It's obvious what groups are moving how. So just like with the different kinds of filtering, the animation, in addition to helping you keep track of what's moving where, is also helping you understand what kind of operation you're making just by how they move.
So you've now seen examples of marks moving in vizzes and dashboards, but animation is not restricted to marks within a viz. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I feel like we left one out.
No.
Okay. You're right.
Sorry, let us juggle. So when you arrange the pills on a row and column shelves.
No, we did. Wait, back up one. Home on the range. Because this one's yours and mine's is the next.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
Well, so here we are. It's a live demo.
And she's QA.
Totally not recorded. Okay. So unless you fix your axes, Tableau automatically zooms your vizzes to fit the range of the values of the marks in the viz. He's right, we totally skipped this. If you add and remove marks with a minimum and a maximum values, the ranges change and Tableau redoes the framing. So here, I think you were driving for this one though.
Mm-mm.
Here you see the bars representing cities grouped by color and by state in which they're located. Oh, great. This is a filter on state, which adds and removes the cities by mark. And without animation, it's disorienting, so let's do that. So you see how it jumps and it jars a little bit. And let's do another one.
Arizona.
Oh, thank you. There it is. Okay. So this automatic framing is useful for seeing the right presentation for each set of marks, but the sudden jumps can be quite jarring. Let's add animation into the mix. You see how we automatically resize and everything scales and zooms. With animation, these jarring changes become a kind of consistent push and pull. To remove a state with a wide range and the animation marks move out of the way and the other states zoom in to get a closer look. But if we put the state back in, you see they zoom out to make room. It's almost like Tableau is opening and closing some magic drawers that let you see just the right amount. And it feels like that push and pull is moving with you and not against you. Yeah.
Now here's that next one. So all of the examples until now have been examples of marks moving within a viz or within a dashboard. But animation is not restricted to marks only. When you add pills or remove pills or arrange pills on the shelf, entire panes or small multiples can appear, disappear, or rearrange. And just like marks, they can be hard to follow. So here we have a case where we've got three measures, and each has its own graph. If I remove the middle measure, the middle graph disappears. Put it back, take it out, put it back. If I take the end pill off, one of them disappears. I'm not sure which. Put it back. And OK, you can kind of probably guess which one that is. And if you switch them around, they change places. Not 100% sure what's changing with what. But if you animate those transitions, it becomes blindingly clear. Okay, that's the middle one. That's the bottom one. And the latter two are changing places. First one's going to the end, and so forth.
We hope that you connected with some of these examples we just showed you. We believe there are 3 primary ways that they demonstrate how animation is going to assist you. The first is flow. When you're not confused and you feel that Tableau is moving with you and working with you as you make your changes, this will help you get in the zone and feel like you've achieved that flow in your work. The second is analysis. When the motion helps you spot changes or helps you track marks that are relevant to your findings, animation is going to help you in your analysis. And the third is presentation. Animation will help you show other people what you figured out. As you'll see in part 3, you can slow it down, break it down, highlight a mark, and then play the animation back. All of this will help you communicate better with your audience. Part 2, theory and design. You've now seen some of what our animation does, but we didn't talk about how we design those animations. So before we dive in, here's some context. Everything you saw in the last section is something that we hope to ship in Tableau. But what you're going to see here is stuff we will not be shipping in Tableau. It's generally speaking poor form, some missteps, and some bad versions. Some of it within Tableau, some of it not. The stuff you'll see in Tableau, Polly broke a special build just for us. So thank you, Polly. But these features will not be part of our current design.
Okay. Oops.
Oh, sorry.
Back one. Yeah. For starters, motion is beautiful. The right motion can be hypnotic. And you really don't need 100,000 computer graphic stormtroopers to delight people.
And we all know that data can be beautiful. That's why we're all here.
Now, when adding motion to data, as with walking, we have a lot of choices available as to how to move. Some of those choices are good, and some of those choices are bad for your purposes.
So at the outset of this project, we had some super open brainstorming sessions. Here we had some real opportunities to just get outside of the context of Tableau and explore and see what we thought we could become.
Could we, for example, free ourselves from the rigidity of standard graphs? Could marks and annotations have individual personality? Could they have agency and do different things?
What about using the law of physics? Apple's entire UI is based on the spring and damper physics model, and so many people love it. We could even have stretchy bars and squishy circles if we wanted.
Or we could treat marks like flocks of birds. It's a nice way to see related motion of lots of little things that hangs together quite nicely.
So it's always great to encourage free thinking. It helps you get acquainted with the ideas and the design space and the possibilities. From there, though, you need to think about your product and your audience. We want to create a system that fits within Tableau, within the brand, within the aesthetics, within our mission. Something clear and clean that supports you in your understanding of the data. Obviously, Clippy was on our mind. We wanted to create something that you're going to use, that you're going to love, and not something that your first question is, okay, but how do I turn it off? We want to avoid these valueless distractions.
In times like this, it is good to turn to Tableau's best practices. These are techniques that Tableau encourages you all to use when building great dashboards, and Tableau's software is created in support of those best practices. In a list of 10 of them, 2 of these, highlighted in lavender, are about letting the eyes travel freely to a point of focus. And 2 of them, highlighted in yellow, are about simplifying in order to let the meaning shine through. We want to create animations that are in service of those goals.
Tableau helps you guide focus with economy by supporting your use of something called Preattentive Attributes. These are visual cues that help you see without trying. For example, Tableau's color palettes help you create contrast in the Preattentive attribute of color. so you can easily spot the differences. And the layout system creates default sizes and widths that also help you take advantage of the different preattentive attributes in those.
Well, motion is also a preattentive attribute. So our animation system needs to clarify and emphasize that preattentive attribute for you, just as Tableau does with color and layout, by being as clear at showing differences as possible.
We've chosen 3 guiding principles designed to support meaningful animation that will help you focus on what's important.
Always tell the truth, be direct, and fast for analysis, slow for presentation.
There are popular vizzes now in which circles jockey for position and push each other aside, like you're seeing here. Here's a D3 demo that uses collision detection. It's similar to the flocking technique we just showed you. This is engaging, but it tells a lie. The positions in this example reflect values associated with the marks. All of these marks really belong at the center of the cluster, and if they never reach their true destination, how do you know what it is? This is made worse when multiple clusters occur on the same chart. Of course, sometimes this technique can be great. For example, if you want to share that there are more or fewer marks that share different values and attributes. And in the future, we might provide this as an option for you to use in communicating with your audience. But for clear, honest results, we must place the marks at the locations that reflect their true values.
So, if we're always to be truthful, marks can't squash or stretch because the size and the shape may be encoded to measures of data. So if the width or the length of a bar is a measure, and that bar does anything squashy and stretchy, you don't know whether the value is changing or if it's just a fun design thing. A changing shape implies a changing measure, and it's a lie. Marks also can't have physical characteristics like non-intersecting boundaries if their location is encoded to a measure.
When we're going from point A to point B, we can vary the rate. This is called an easing curve. We can go at a consistent velocity called linear interpolation. We can ease in, ease out, or both. I'm going to wave my hands a little bit and show you I'm not terribly good at it, so here we go. Easing curve, linear interpolation. It's just kind of straight. The ease in, we go slow, and then we end fast, as if I were winding up to hit my dear friend Polly. The ease out, we start fast, and we end up slow, as if I weren't going to punch Polly.
Indeed. All right, so did I switch to?
Yes, you did.
Yes, okay. So here's an example of an animation where we're going to be changing the lengths of some bars and some lines associated with another measure. This is linear motion. All right, on my super duper animation desktop, I'm going to show you, actually, we've got a whole bunch of controls here. These are some of those secret controls that you'll never see, and you'll never be able to do some of the horrible things I'm about to do. This menu here is a choice of different easing curves. As you see, the one we're using is a sinusoidal ease in, ease out, which gives a pleasant motion like this, like we move in real life. If I change that to, say, a bounce ease out, and do these motions, you may have actually seen some things like this online. And it could be cool for something like, you know, like a market crash or like prices really falling for something where you want to kind of make a point of something like that. But we can't put that in your animations. Whenever I see things like this online, I go nuts. Because what is that? It's not how the data is actually changing over time. All right, I'm going to put this back so that we never see it again for the rest of the day. All right.
Okay. I switched for you.
Oh, you? Okay.
I'm
good.
way ahead of you.
Thank you. Is it?
It's moving.
It's moving and everything. Okay, great. So here's an example from D3. It's really pretty. It's like the fountains of the Bellagio in Las Vegas. But here's the thing. The beauty is totally hiding the meaning of what's going on here. Each of these bars is splitting in 3 or stacking up from 3. It's a simple drill down and a drill up, but you would never know it from looking at it. So not only does this animation take longer, but it's doing the exact opposite of what animation is supposed to do for you, which is help you see and understand. Here's another example. It still has a delay, but it's much smaller. And now you can see what this is about. It's a drill down. It's taking a bar and cutting it into 3 parts, and then stacking them back up.
Because location expresses measurement, and those measurements need to be true, what does it mean when a mark moves from one location to another? When we show in-betweens, technically those values are a lie because they don't correlate to the data on record. Therefore, we have a responsibility for the motion to show the clearest and most direct path possible. This motion needs to tell us how we change from truth to truth. Not only that, but any embellishment works against the preattentive attribute of motion. Therefore, only linear, ease in, ease out motion curves, and these paths must be direct with no ripple delays.
So originally, we used a slow duration and multi-phased animations as our default because they're the easiest ones to follow. We've been using a medium speed and multi-phased animations for most of this presentation thus far. But as we integrated animation into day-to-day workflow, as opposed to giving demos, people told us that the transitions needed to happen at pace with how they work. Waiting more than a half a second makes it feel like Tableau is sluggish, when in fact it's not. Therefore, as a default, we will always give you a fast animation a fast and synchronized animation. And when you want to show it to other people, or for a deeper inspection, we'll give you the opportunity to make a longer, more informative transition.
So to recap, Tableau animation is a way for us to communicate to you what Tableau is doing and what is happening to the data at the right speed. Anything else is superfluous. In later releases, we hope to add ways for you to embellish your animations, but that will be an option for you. Any animation that we inject into your workflow must be clear, simple, and helpful. Part 3, usages and best practices.
Yes.
Hopefully, at this point, you're all excited about animation in Tableau.
No, I don't hear a thing. Okay.
Some of them are.
Okay, good.
I'm sure you want to know
The rest of you leave. No.
how you can use it.
Doors are locked.
No, don't do that. No, not that either. I'm sure you want to know how you can use it when you get your hands on it, right? So as we've been talking to you, you've been seeing this GUI that Polly's been interacting with. It's kind of ugly. It's definitely not Tableau, and it's definitely not going to ship in any final product that we may release. However, if you join an early beta, you might see it. Until then, we're working on a beautiful, intuitive interface that will put you in control and will fit seamlessly in with the Tableau you know and love.
Okay, so each sheet in your workbook is going to be able to have its own speed. The default is going to be fast. Yeah. The default is going to be fast, but you'll be able to use the GUI to change it. So in part 1, we were mostly at a medium speed so that you can follow along. But think about how many times without animation, and Tableau today you've gone back and forth with undo and redo. Well, if the animation is too fast and you've got a complicated situation, the same thing might happen. So here we have an animation. Is this animation on?
Yes.
Fast?
Yes.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to make a change here. And a lot of things just happened. I'm going to do some undo and redo. Not as much change as I wanted to, but that's all right. Now, if we slow this down, you can get a better look at what's happening here. In the bottom half, there are actually points being added to these lines because we're adding more years to the range. And at the same time, there are bars being added in to the section on the top. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, a single animation results in many changes, even more changes than you saw here. every change that you've seen so far today falls into one of 4 categories. Marks can exit the viz. Marks that are in the viz before and after, they can move and change shape and change color. Marks can enter the viz. And marks can sort and change order as a result in a change of measure. Those of you familiar with D3 are probably aware of the enter, move, exit paradigm. Well, so we've added sort as a first-class citizen, and when we chain them together in the order exit, move, sort, enter, we call that a phased animation. And we give you the choice of seeing it in the 4 phases, one after the other, or synchronized with all of them together.
Under the hood, our animation breaks every animation down into those 4 steps that Polly just said: exit, move, sort, and enter. For any sheet, you can choose to display them end to end as a phased animation or altogether synchronized. Or you shall be able to turn it off entirely. Let's see how synchronized versus phased works for an action that contains all 4 phases. Here, this is synced, and it's on medium speed. Let me double check. Oh, switch it for me.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So it's synced, and it's on a medium speed. So I'm going to undo and redo so you can verify that the marks are changing on and off. So lots are going on. Now, if I change that to slow and phased, okay. And let's do that again. So here you see that they fade, they grow, they sort, and then some marks enter. Again, some marks exit. Yeah, this is too fast even. So
yeah, do it super slow.
I had it timed perfectly when I was practicing. We'll go with very slow. Okay, so as I do this again, some marks exit, they change heights, they sort, and the new marks enter. And again, that's exit, change, sort, and then enter. It's really easy to understand it this way, which makes it great for presentation. But the 4 phases take longer, and we expect users that will probably turn it off by default or use fast during their day-to-day work.
Oops, wait.
Yeah.
Okay. So highlighting is a great way to keep track of marks when you have a lot on screen that you all probably use today in Tableau. But with animation, it can be even better, and it can help you see things that you don't see without it. So here we have a case where I'm going to highlight these 2 marks, and I'm going to just change years. And this results in a different ordering and a different height. And we see, OK, yeah, those are the 2 marks. But if you do this with the animation turned on, something becomes instantly apparent that you might miss otherwise. They're changing places. Now, if you follow the marks and you read their labels, you can tell this without animation. It's what you've got to do today. But you don't even have to think about it when you get to see them move.
So because the GUI will let you control each sheet separately, you will be able to control how busy your dashboards are. We believe it's important that dashboards can be isolated to a subset of vizzes within each dashboard to emphasize important ideas and concepts. So right now, this dashboard has way too much movement. But in the future, when you can tune each sheet individually, you'll be able to just reduce the amount of the amount of just noise in your dashboard. Did we mention this was a prototype? Did we also mention that it's my job to break everything?
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
What's not look at that anymore.
It's all right. You know, this is why it's not released yet. Okay. Before we finish up, we have one more point to make on best practices. As our good friend and data scientist Mark Twain once quoted someone else as saying, there are three kinds of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics.
So you're all data scientists, and you all know how to lie with data, and you've probably figured out how to lie in Tableau. And as you probably figured out by now, we strongly discourage that. But there are subtleties to animation that you guys need to be aware of. For example, if you have data from 1990 through 1994, and the data, what?
I didn't say anything. Something's going on behind us.
That's very exciting back there.
I hope it's not a Sasquatch, because I was supposed to be the only one.
Did you have it in your contract? Okay, so let's actually talk about what we're here to talk about. Sorry, we like each other in real life. Okay, so if you have data in 1990 through 1994, and the data in 1990 is lower than the data in 1994, you might want to show an animation drawing just that, 1990 to 1994. However, if the values in the intervening years are lower, this movement is a lie. To truly tell the truth, you need to go through all the intervening points. So it's the same in non-animation, but with animation, and because of our preattentive attributes, it's super important that we make sure we go through all of the different marks.
Okay, so let's recap. Animation can be powerful. You can use it to clarify what's happening with your data so you and your users can see what's going on. It's also beautiful. And our custom controls should help you find the best and clearest, most delightful animation for the job.
So
this is our second
old,
session, so you can't come to the next one.
and you can't come to the labs because those are over.
Can't come to the labs.
But you can do this one for us.
Yes.
Fill it out. Give us your feedback. If you have any feedback about animation specifically, you can also include that in your session feedback if you want. But we do have an email alias, which I forgot, but maybe our boss remembers what it is. He's making faces. He doesn't remember either. So please complete the session survey. Give us your notes.
Or,
we're going to get to Q&A in like 5 seconds, and then we'll answer that.
two more slides first. So first off, we have a pre-release program. If you want to get your hands on this now, because if it becomes part of the product, it's going to be a little while. We do have a beta program. Go check this out, and you can sign up to get a chance to use it yourselves.
Okay, I'm going to leave that up so you guys can take your photos of it really quickly. But before we do, Polly hinted at the answer to that question that half of you didn't hear was, when can you get your hands on it? So prototype. This is stuff that we hope one day might be part of the product in some fashion or another.
We're hoping really hard.
If you missed, there were a lot of caveats in that sentence. So we don't know. We can't promise anything. It might not look like this when it ships. It definitely won't have that GUI. We would love it to be the right thing, but we need to balance getting you the right things and getting it to you quickly, if we are able to get it to you at all. So this is a research track. This is stuff we're working on.
So before we open to Q&A, we want to introduce you to our team. There's just two of us up here, but this whole list of folks is involved in creating this stuff. I know we've got at least one of the group right here. This is Jamie Campbell, fearless leader. Is anyone else from the team here? No. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
Q&A.
it's time for Q&A, but before we start, I want to advise you, you might want to stick around to the very end. There is a little surprise for some subset of you. Okay, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, in the front. So, sorry, is this available in Tableau software?
Will it be available in Tableau server is the question.
Oh.
And so you will notice that this has all been a demo in desktop. And when we say to you that we want to release it when it's ready, I would certainly say that that would be part of ready, wouldn't you?
As a QA, I want all the things.
Yeah, and so we all want it to happen. So no guarantees, but yes, we're working on it. Yes?
Yeah. Performance on server or on desktop? Okay, so the question in the front was, what about performance on server?
So the answer is, so let's say you have an operation that takes 7 seconds to get your result from server. With animation, it's going to take 7 seconds to get your result from server. And when the result comes back, you're going to animate from what you had before to what you had next. The only thing that's going to affect performance is if you've got 1 million marks. And we're going to have to do something like, there's going to be some amount of marks or a metric that says, like, wow, we can't play this back at a fast enough rate. We're going to have to cut it out then. In practice, I think we've only had 2 things submitted to us that had issues with frame rate, and one of them was like, do you have something else going on your machine? And they tried it the next day, and it was okay because they were actually, there was an indexing program running. But I guarantee you, you'll be able to overload it in that respect. But it's not going to slow down the analysis in any way.
In the very back against the wall. So 2 questions I heard. Number 1, parameterized, and the second, okay. Okay, so you're more interested in the API rather than in like set and parameter actions. Okay.
Sorry.
Polly's done.
No, I'm not done. We've got questions to answer.
Okay, so JavaScript API or some other API. Yeah, I'm going to let you take that one too.
So, so what we're showing you now are the most basic and fundamental animations that have to be there before you can go anywhere else. And from there's a lot of directions we can go next. There's giving you good control over doing specific things for your audience, emphasizing things. That's one direction. Another direction is user interface. A third direction is programmatic control. We have to be just as careful in providing good APIs as we do in providing good animations, because if you've ever created an API, once it's out there, it's there forever, and it's got to be good. So we need to learn how to make an API that's going to be most like the other APIs that exist in the suite. But I mean, absolutely, we want to be able to give you programmatic control over these things. I can tell you that we've done a tiny bit of exploration with that thus far, and we're in contact with that team. So we're mindful of it. It remains to be seen if that will come out right when the rest of it does. But we know that there's a lot of power in there. Now, in terms of if you do things that change parameters, in theory, those should kick off animations also. We haven't done a ton of experimentation there, but a lot of the time, if someone points out a new feature or a new feature turns up when we try and animate, sometimes it just works because the system is very fundamental. Sometimes it doesn't. We have to add something. So an example is the set actions that you saw yesterday. Remember that when Denny had a line viz and he used set actions to pick a point and the lines moved? This isn't exactly the same one, but we thought like, well, let's throw that in and see what happens with animation. And so now this is the same demo that he showed yesterday, except you're seeing the lines move smoothly from one location to the other. So set actions just work. If you do certain things with parameters, they just work. But again, we have to vet this all the way through the system. Part of why we have to be very careful about releasing this is because it's going to be everywhere and it's going to be fundamental to your workflow, and we can't mess that up. Okay?
Yeah. So much similar to the export to PowerPoint that we demoed yesterday and such. So the question was exporting to GIF. We got that question this morning, and that was the first time I'd heard it. It's a great idea. So
I've heard it a few times this week.
so I've had a couple of days to consider it.
Yeah.
So I'm making no promises on behalf of anybody.
And you're talking about an animated GIF, right? Yeah. So the question is, if you do something and you animate it, is there a way to, rather than, handing it to someone in Tableau, can you just get a nice recording of it? And again, there's a lot, there are some different workflows for that, some subtleties to that. It's something that the more people we show it to, it's emerging as something people want. We'll have to juggle, would we hold up a release for it or not, but we know that people want it. Yeah. Yes?
The extensions API is a great idea for a third-party partner to do that, yeah.
And worst case scenario, if you're doing something and using the application, you can use QuickTime to just capture on video what you're doing, right? There are workarounds for all these things, but of course you want it in your workflow in a way that lets you get at it the way you want to. We know that. Yeah.
Yes. So the question was, come on, people, when are you going to make pages animate on server? Is that a fair restatement of the question? There were lots of reasons at the time, which was really your question, why we didn't do it. Technology has improved. Things have sped up. It is certainly a thing that we consider a high priority for releasing.
Amazingly, there are still a technical hurdle that is arcane and difficult to explain, and I think if I could, I might not be allowed to. But we regard it as part of our mission,
Yes, we hear you. We feel you.
Anyone else?